Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast. I am Bryson Carver. In the middle right there is Tim Barnard. Arthur Hurst is on the right. We are massive college football fans. We are excited to be with you on this week two to begin this college football Saturday. I'll start with you, Tim. Listen, you're rocking the Florida Gators a shirt there. We're going to be obviously talking about Florida, Ohio State, and my Vols later in the show. But how are you doing on this college football Saturday?
Man, I'm doing great. Week 2, college football season doesn't get any better than this. This is absolutely the best time of the year, hands down, bar none.
100%. We wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of hype yourselves up before the games today. Arthur Hurst, a fan of the Ohio State Buckeyes, the defending national champions. Arthur, we're about to talk about your Buckeyes and their win over Texas last week. How are you feeling about this number one ranked team in the country stuff?
Listen, I thought it was disrespectful the fact that we weren't number one. We won the championship last year. And I mean, I get it. It's Arch Manning, it's Texas, but hop off the coattails. The team that should have been number one last week and going into the season is number one going into this week. So I can't complain too much.
Listen, they prove what they're about, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and we're about to talk about that in just a second. Stay tuned. We got a ton to talk about. We've got Buckeyes Breakfast. Arthur will kind of give you his takes on Ohio State and the latest surrounding the Buckeyes. I'll give my latest takes on Tennessee, the Tennessee Vols, and the latest edition of the Vol View. I'm very conflicted about what's going to go on with my Vols today. I'll talk about that later. Tim Barnard, Gator City later on. Also, we'll get to the cover crew, our favorite bets of the week, our top 25. We kind of compiled our top 25 into one single ranking. We'll talk about that. And of course, at the end, the whole point of us doing this is to predict the football game. So very excited about that later on in the show. So let's start with last week's game. It was probably the most hyped week one game in recent memory in college football. Texas, Ohio State. Arthur, your Buckeyes getting it done 14-7. But the big story coming in and coming out was Arch Manning. A lot of hype. Obviously, he's got the most famous last name in football. But played poorly, threw for barely over 150 yards, was inaccurate, had a bad interception. Arthur, your take on this game. Do you think this had more to do with Ohio State's great defense or Arch just missing routine throws?
It has a lot to do with the fact that Arch Manning is the nephew of Eli and Peyton Manning. He's not the son. Remember that, okay? Yes, he's got the last name. But there's a reason why he said he is willing to come back next season is because he still feels he is not ready. Yes, he had plenty of reps last year when Quinn Ewers was not playing and things of that nature. But you saw what happened. Coach Steve said, nah, we're going to ride with our veteran. And everybody, all the Longhorn fans wanted Arch to play. Everybody wanted Arch to play, and I get it. But again, he's still young, right? And he has to develop. Again, reason why he wants to come back next year. But I believe a whole lot of the credit has to go to the Ohio State defense. Caleb Downs and Arvell Reese was everywhere on that field. And I love the addition of Reese on this defense. I love the fact that Matt Patricia is able to let Caleb Downs do whatever he wants on that field, playing whether it's safety up top or coming down. The biggest thing is Matt Patricia. We know he doesn't like the blitz. That's not his game plan. But he has the team to do this. I mean, think about it. Last week, 4-men rush put pressure on Arch Manning 12 times with only 4 men. So imagine what you're able to do throughout the season when you bring a whole lot of bodies at the quarterback and you don't give them time to throw the ball. That's going to add a whole lot of more pressure to the quarterback. It's going to add a whole lot of more pressure to the offenses. And not only that, depending on where you get the ball in the position for the offense, let Julian Sand be able to continue to grow, get more comfortable with his wide receiver one and Jeremiah Smith, who looked a little down last week because it's like, dang, I'm not getting touches, but it's understandable. At the end of the day, Ryan Day's game plan was, listen, we're going to use Carnell Tate, we're going to use Brandon Ennis, we're going to use our running backs and C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples, and we're just going to walk out of here with this win. We're not going to try to get too cute throwing the ball. We can do that this week versus Grambling. But this is a number 1 and number 3 matchup against the people that we beat in the game to go to the championship last year. Let's go ahead and take these guys out in week 1, and then we'll worry about getting Jeremiah Smith really incorporated in this offense in week 2.
I think there's no question. I think you saw early, especially with Arch Manning's struggles, there was an element like Ryan Day, I feel like kind of felt out the game like, okay, we don't need to do anything crazy or special. Let's just play conservative, defense first, very much an old school style football, and it works for Ohio State because they've got the personnel, obviously, to do it. Tim, your take on this. I know we discussed this when we were promoting the Saturday Morning Tailgate on my show the other day, like this sort of does it have to do with Arch Manning's struggles? Because we saw him in some limited action last year, one game even against Mississippi State at home. Mississippi State isn't exactly Ohio State, to put it mildly, but showed mobility. Accuracy was fine. There were some arm strength troubles. What did you take away from Arch Manning's performance against Ohio State at the Horseshoe last week?
So I took away, listen, Arch Manning, yes. First of all, everybody, saying that he sucks, myself included. Can we say we're overreacting? Sure, of course. But where's the fun in saying that? It's fun to say he sucks now, right? We got a show to do today. But what I really was trying to figure out between that game is it felt like both teams, Ohio State and Texas, were pretty conservative. It's almost like, yes, Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian knew what he had in Arch Manning, but you're kind of sitting there going, well, why isn't Arch Manning unloading like he could be, like he should be if you're Texas? And yes, could Matt Patricia have thrown him off, and being able to have all the studs that Patricia has on defense? Of course. But it felt like both teams were feeling each other out, playing very conservative, not really wanting to be that first team to turn the ball over. And Ohio State just was the better team. They threw Arch Manning off. They were able to get home when they needed to and able to disrupt his pocket presence. So, listen, Arch Manning has still got a long season ahead of him. No two ways about it. But I don't know. I'd be a little concerned if I was a Texas fan looking at that game and saying, really? Manning? Cooper's kid?
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Arthur kind of hit on it. He's the nephew. He's not Peyton and Reali's son. He's Cooper Manning's son. By the way, too, you sort of hit on this, Tim. You don't want to overreact to the first game, especially at the Horseshoe. Ohio State, Lee Corso makes his last pick. All of the hoopla and the hype coming into this game. But you don't want to overreact to the first game. You also don't want to overreact to the first play from scrimmage. And I felt like I kind of could, help myself, but doing so, play action's got a guy wide open on the right side and doesn't throw it at his feet, throws it 5 foot, in front of the receiver. It's whoa, that felt like a nerves type of throw where it's, he's not kind of settling into the game at all. And I feel like Sark kind of saw that and was okay, we may need to dial this back a little bit because this may not be working to the way that we thought it would.
Well, that's why too. When you listen to coaches talk about getting the nerves out, it's usually these short dink and dunk passes. You don't go for the home run on the first try.
No question. I think once Texas was playing catch up, especially once Ohio State went up 14-0, it felt like they kind of had to open up. There was no choice to try and get back into the game. Put together a good drive, second to last of the game. And even the last drive, it looks like, okay, they're getting the ball to midfield. He throws the ball behind a guy on third down. Just didn't step into his throws. His feet didn't look set. Some of it's a mechanics issue. The good news is for Texas, if you look at, their upcoming schedule, it's 3 just laughers. I think it's San Jose State today, if I'm not mistaken. So Texas is going to be fine moving forward. I think we'll see where they have them. We have them in the top 25. Fair to say they're still very much in the national championship picture. Speaking of, you talked about Matt Patricia, Tim. Speaking of former New England Patriots, rough debut for your guy Bill Belichick in North Carolina against TCU at Chapel Hill. The Tar Heels lose 48-14 to a TCU team that's good. Don't get me wrong. Hoover's a really nice quarterback. We know Sonny Dykes is one of the top coaches in the Big 12 and in college football. But nonetheless, good opening drive, and then it all went downhill from there for North Carolina. So I'll ask you first, Tim, is this a cause for panic, for concern? Because listen, North Carolina isn't exactly a world beater, but they were a bowl team last year. They're not just some slouch in the ACC. Your take on Bill Belichick's debut at North Carolina?
Yeah, I absolutely think this is a cause for concern. Not only did they get shellacked on Monday, but now you got reports coming out that Bill Belichick's not inviting any New England Patriots staff, scouts on game days and or practice. And UNC's behind this, which is wild to me.
Yeah. And
the whole point of this was that Belichick has the 33rd team in the NFL here. That's how he's going to run it. Well, kind of what he's doing. I was a Belichick guy for obviously my entire life, basically. And yet I'm watching this all unfold, and I'm just sitting there going, what the hell is going on? And it's, I'm not saying that his entire staff sucks, but when your staff is loaded with nepotism, left and right, it's him, his kids, friends of his kids. Like, what do you expect? And too, not for nothing, when you watch that, the quarterback, my apologies for getting his name,
Gio Lopez.
Yeah, Lopez. He looked great to start, but then sucked for most of it. And then the kid who came in second, all of a sudden he looked like he understood the offense and understood the game plan and was getting the ball out quickly. So, I mean, I wanted to sit there and be like, Bill, are you blind to what's actually going on with your team? Because that's something that, come on, you should know as the head coach. And listen, I will never not appreciate what Belichick did for the Pats and, him and Tom Brady. It's always the two of them together. I will never put one over the other. But he's done. He is spent. Yeah. He is cooked. Him being Mr. Drama-free is over. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I'm not rooting for him or against him, but it's like, dude, all right, come on, wrap it up, go home.
And it feels like, and then I'll ask you about it, Arthur, but for me, I think if there's one thing that you could point to and say, this is Belichick's blind spot, you sort of hit on one, or at least one of them, Tim, with, like you said, nepotism. He only wants to hire coaches or be around coaches that he's comfortable with that may not challenge him. There's almost an element of, to use an NFL example, like Jerry Jones and the Jones family only seem to hire people that are involved in some way or have ties to the Cowboys. That feels like how Belichick's running his coaching staff. I mean, Freddie Kitchens is your OC. What are we doing? His son is the DC. Like, it's not working. If I had to pick one blind spot of Bill Belichick, and you can go back to his days in New England, the last decade there, his ability to evaluate talent is abysmal. I mean, it's atrocious. You look at those last 10 drafts in New England, I'll never forget as long as I live. One of the best GMs and coaches in football, Les Snead and Sean McVay with the Rams, literally snickering at a press conference about one of Bill's draft picks.
Not snickering, laughing out loud. Really? Yeah. I had him projected for the 4th round.
Like, again,
he's not even on the team anymore.
He's not on the team anymore. And if you could just pinpoint one, bad evaluation of talent on the part of Bill Belichick, Tom Brady still had a lot of gas left in the tank at age 43 or 42, but going on 43. And Belichick said he was the problem, not the atrocious receiving core. Sorry to bring up bad memories for you, Tim, but that's Belichick. Yep. And Kraft to a certain degree is who's responsible for Brady's departure. And he obviously wins the Super Bowl immediately in Tampa. I'll ask you about this, Arthur. So again, Tim sort of hit on it. This whole, drama-free on a Cincinnati, football first, frown when his players did commercials, for crying out loud. And now he is one of the biggest celebrities, and I don't mean that in a good way, in college football right off the bat. Is this a cause for panic? You think North Carolina's about to just nosedive the rest of the year?
Man, it's very unfortunate because the conversation, and Tim hit on it a little bit, the conversation with Coach Bill Belichick and Tom Brady was, you had people argue, like, who was it? Was it Bill or was it Tom? Right. And it's so funny because you compare that to somebody like a Phil Jackson and a Michael Jordan. Michael didn't start winning until Phil got there. And it was pretty obvious that without Phil, Michael more than likely wasn't going to win. Same thing with, when he had Scotty and things of that nature. Those were the 3 guys you needed. You need Phil Jackson, you need Michael Jordan, and you need Scottie Pippen. You can put whoever else you want around them, they're going to win. It was the same thing with Bill and Tom, but I think it just got to a point where egos got involved, right? Like, we're going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. Wait, you're going to go with who? Over me? Like, that makes no sense. So it's like, Tom, it's like, you know what? I see what you're doing. I have to get out of here. And you look at who won after they parted ways, it was Tom. Tom had a coach who was like, listen, I understand. I'm going to listen. And they had to remember, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a rough season. And Bruce Arians and them, they just had to lock in during that bye week with Tom Brady and say, okay, what do you want to do? What can we do to put you in positions to be successful? And Tom's like, listen, this is what I like. This is what I need. And they're like, okay, you know what? Go. And then what do? Go on and win the Super Bowl. And what has Bill Belichick done ever since they parted ways? It's been losing season. It's been, I can't do this. I can't do that. Now you thought, You had guys like Drake May now come in, but we're going to see what he's able to do with Mike Vrabel, Travion Henderson. You know, they still don't really have a really good wide receiving core, but you beef it up with your new coach. And then, as you said, Bill Belichick, who has always been a behind the scenes guy, a quiet guy, is now this celebrity. I mean, we know why, right? He was retired and then he comes back. He's got this young girlfriend. You know, that doesn't bring, the best of light to him in his life. And now you're talking about having a TV show come out with you and your team. And now you got TCU trolling you saying, when is episode one coming out? Right? Like, it's so funny that TCU beat them the way they did because you go to Instagram comments and people are like, you know what? Go get the Georgia Bulldogs. Listen, bro, shut up. Y'all lucky, right, that y'all got this week one dub. Or not lucky, but y'all lucky that you guys had to face this type of team. We saw what y'all did a few years ago. Y'all haven't done anything since that championship, so please just be quiet or before we get the Georgia Bulldogs and sick them on you. But it's very unfortunate to see Bill Belichick just continue to go down. And I agree with Tim at this point, you need to just wrap it up. I don't believe what he does at North Carolina affects his legacy, but it does hurt when again the wins and the success that you had was all tied to Tom Brady. And all you had to do was let your ego go and say, listen, he and I together, we won. Right. And the fact that he's won without you and you haven't been able to do anything without him, it shows, man, he might have needed Tom Brady more than Tom Brady needed him. And it's just unfortunate that he had to see it this way.
And go ahead, Tim.
No, and I was just to add on to that, Arthur, like Belichick, he could get away with being selfish for so long because of Tom Brady. And it was great. But now it's so evident that he's so selfish, so petty. I mean, I used to laugh whenever we played the Browns or the Jets because of how much Bill hated them and what they did to him. But with this, it's like now if my eyes open and I'm seeing the pettiness, the just how little things just take him all the way to the nth degree, where it's like, dude, really? You're a football coach. Like, these things, aren't you more concerned about helping your players get to the NFL? And one of those places being the New England Patriots? Like, what are we doing?
It's petty,
my fault,
yeah.
Bryson. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Arthur.
It's just unfortunate also because you listen to how his former players talk about him. Like, I love listening to Julian Edelman's podcast. He just recently
Great
had Vince
podcast.
Wilfork on, right? He's had a bunch of guys on, Matt Light, Gronk, obviously. Like, you hear how his former players from his Patriots days talk about him. They love him. They would write for him. That's what you want. And it's just like, damn, man, like, what happened? What happened when those last few years with Tom Brady that you just couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, like Tom Brady even talked about it. It's like, dude, like, I'm not that young guy anymore. And that was
he
the thing.
almost
Is like,
traded Gronk. He almost traded Gronk the year we won the final Super Bowl.
Yep. Again, it's again poor evaluation of talent, pettiness. We kind of hit all those functions. And to your point, Arthur, and then I see our guy Patrick is in the comments, and we'll get to him. It's, you can't separate Brady and Belichick, certainly from that dynasty. There's no question about it. But when you look at, okay, Belichick has no division titles without Tom. He's won 42% of his games in the NFL without Tom Brady. Like, all of these stops, all of these disastrous endings for him, like, it's not like if you think about Michael Jordan with the Wizards, it's like, well, he was old and out of shape. Who cares? You think about somebody like a Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was absolutely shot by the end. Arm strength was off. Couldn't stay healthy. Won a Super Bowl because of that defense. But we're like, but one bad year doesn't take away from when you have we've got a lot of data on Belichick without Tom where it doesn't look so good. Our guy Patrick Brown's in the comments. Between the offseason distractions, bright lights playing on primetime, and the UNC Tar Heel legend and MJ, LT, and Mia Hamm, they wasn't ready for all this. Yeah, it felt like that was like their bowl game to a degree. It was like, man, this is huge. This is ACC championship game, and North Carolina's playing. And safe to say, after the first drive, it was a disaster. Quickly here, I wanted to discuss Clemson and LSU because that was kind of the second biggest game last week. LSU with the shutout in the second half, winning the game by a final score of 17-10. Your thoughts on this game, Arthur? Were you more impressed by LSU's defensive effort in the second half, just shutting down Clemson, or were you like, I would have liked to have seen more from Cade Klubnik and that Clemson offense at home?
No, you got to give LSU defense credit. I mean, I get it. You got to also think about who Clemson has had the last few years. Guys like Trevor Lawrence, guys like Deshaun Watson, guys like who, hell, even Tosh Boyd, and he's forgettable, but even he had hell of a seasons at Clemson, right? You had really good guys at quarterback position who was able to lead the team, had a really good wide receiver core and things of that nature. But it's just the aura of Clemson has left the building. Same thing with Alabama. The aura of Alabama has left the building, and it's so fun. It's so fun to see. Honestly, I love it because a lot of my years, especially as a Buckeye fan, some of our losses came to both of those teams, and it was very annoying because we had the talent to compete, but it was always just either that coaching or it was just a little bit, they had a little bit better talent than us. And it was like, you know what? Dang, we can't compete because this is SEC football. This is ACC football. The Big Ten wasn't where it was at like it is right now. But I loved what LSU did in that defensive effort in the second half. Did exactly what they needed to do, being able to get the upset. And now you just see from Clemson, like, are you able to bounce back? Right? I don't think it's a panic thing. But again, it's just a thing of how do you get who you guys were for so long back, right? You don't have a once in generational talent in Trevor Lawrence anymore at quarterback. You don't have Deshaun Watson who was able to just fling it wherever to whoever he had as receiver anymore. You have K Clubber. It's like, okay, K, we need you to rise to the level and be able to do something. You got to help us get something, right? You can't let your offense get shut out like that, especially when your defense is trying so hard to make sure their offense isn't scoring. But you got to give credit where it's due. I believe LSU really showed up and showed out in that second half to make it difficult for Clemson not being able to do anything on the offensive side. And they were able to come out on the upside.
No question. I think like that was, end of the first half, I thought Brian Kelly made one of the worst coaching calls that we've seen early in the season where it's 15 seconds left, no timeouts. You're in the red zone. You go for it on fourth down. Dude, even if you pick it up, I know the clock stops on first downs in college football before, for them to spot it. But even if you're able to get the first down, clock it, you're still probably taking the field goal. Like, what are you doing? That's just a bad feel for the situation there. But kudos to his team for kind of calming down the second half. I feel like they were the more loose team, oddly, on the road in the other Death Valley. Your take on this game, Tim? I know you certainly don't love LSU as a Gators fan. But listen, first win for Brian Kelly in week one, kind of one of the signature win that the SEC has wanted to see, and certainly the LSU fans have wanted to see from Brian Kelly.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, what Brian Kelly was able to accomplish going into Clemson, getting the victory, I think that's huge for him, his confidence, the program's confidence. But I also kind of like what Arthur was saying. The allure of Clemson is gone. The ACC is dead. It's a dead man walking. I mean, Clemson is done. Florida State is, they were 2-10 last year. Yeah, they beat Alabama. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, I'm still not buying it just yet. Miami lost Cam Ward. Like, I'm sorry. I can't look at the ACC like I could 10 years ago. The ACC is not the same conference it was with Deshaun Watson, with Trevor Lawrence, competing for national championships. No, it's basically the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, we keep saying Power 4. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. Come on now. With that being said, listen, I'm not an LSU fan. We're going to be playing LSU literally next week. So it's, I'm definitely nervous going into Death Valley at night. One of the toughest places to play. But I am still not sold on Brian Kelly. I'm still not sold on LSU 100%. And granted, we have our own issues, in terms of injuries and all that stuff. Not going to deny that. But I'm looking at this going, you know what? It's a good win for LSU. But I just don't like Brian Kelly.
Listen, you're not in the minority in that opinion. He's it doesn't exactly make himself a lovable figure like some coaches in college football do. But I think
my high school too. He's
really?
My high school, yeah.
I mean, listen, the fake Southern accent when he first got there, it's just. I'd like to thank my family. Like, dude, you're from Massachusetts. What are we talking? You're from Boston. Come on. And the accent wasn't even that good anyway. I as a Southern guy, I know it was terrible. I'll say this, and then we'll move to Bama and FSU. I was impressed with Garrett Nussmeier. If there's one thing we know about Clemson, for the allure that's gone, they still produce great defenses each and every season. I thought he played poise, calm. Again, experience playing in the SEC against those defenses obviously helps you in the long run. I think Nussmeier is in that short list of quarterbacks where you could look at him and say, could he be the first pick of the draft to the New Orleans Saints, by the way? The guy like Lenore Sellers, obviously, we'll see if Arch Manning comes back and Klubnik. Nussmeier's absolutely in that discussion, so you give him credit for how he played. Last game I want to get to before we get to Buckeyes Breakfast with our buddy Arthur Hurst. It is, you talk about the allure of Alabama is gone. Boy, double-digit favorites, 13.5-point favorites at Florida State. Now, again, we knew FSU would be better than the 2-10 that they had a year ago. Arthur is just over the moon about this. I'll let you go first, Arthur. Is certainly the dynasty is done because Saban's gone. That goes without saying. But is this just all crashing out? Is Alabama about to have an even more disappointing season than they had a year ago?
Dude, I'm loving this, man. I'm loving this. Listen, if you told me, how old am I? 24? So if you told me in my teens, just give it 10 more years. Hold on. There was a tweet. Remember the tweet that said about LeBron back when he was in the past? He was like, this shit ain't going for long for too much longer. Hey, if you told me back then, listen, just wait a few more years. It isn't going on too much longer. I wouldn't have believed you because I would have thought Saban still would have been there. I never would have thought the NIL thing would have happened and guys are now actually able to get paid. I never would have thought that would have ran Saban out of college football. Dude, I'm loving it. And I got to give kudos, though, to Coach Kalen DeBoer, because, listen, the fact that you came from Washington and said, you know what, I'm cool with doing this, right? The fact that you had the cojones to even sit in that seat, I got to give it to you. But my God, I don't think he truly understood the pressure and the seat that he was about to sit into. Like, it shows me, this was what shows me how different this Alabama team is. It's a lot of things that have happened. But there's a picture going around of what Coach Saban's office looked like when he was there and what Coach Kalen's office looks like. You have Saban, looks old school. It looks like a full-on library. You know what those libraries look like in movies and stuff like that? That
Yeah.
rich old people have? It looks like that. It looks like a study. Kalen, he's got the rings, the trophies, all that. It looks like it's something from the modern day. But it's one thing to have that as your setup. None of those got your name on it, dog. So why are you showing off all of this? And you see it trickle down to the team. It doesn't look like an Alabama team I'm used to. I'm used to seeing wide receivers be dominant. I'm used to seeing quarterbacks be dominant. I'm used to seeing running backs be dominant. I'm used to seeing defenses make tackles, get to the quarterback, get interceptions, make offenses frustrated. I'm used to seeing that from an Alabama Crimson Tide team. But it doesn't look like that anymore. It doesn't look like you're getting the top guys because we got one of y'all top guys, and he helped us win a national championship, and that was Caleb Down. And we're looking to repeat with him this year, but it just doesn't look again like the Alabama that
I think we may have lost Arthur. Listen though, to his point, Tim. And hopefully we can get Arthur back in the mix as soon as we can. But listen, he's right in the sense that they look soft, Tim. I think Arthur's back in the mix. Arthur, I'll let you finish your point. Go ahead.
But nah, man, it's just different. It's just very different. And until Coach Kalen actually looks himself in the mirror and locks in and is like, okay, like this is different than what I expected. And Coach Raymond talked about it on ESPN this week. He said, he has called around the different coaches asking for guidance, saying what I can do better, what I can do differently. And that's what you need to do. You need to ask for guidance because, again, this is a seat that nobody else wanted, but you were willing to take. But now you see why nobody was willing to even take this seat.
No question about it. And again, to something you sort of hit on, then I'll get to you, Tim. Like, it's the thing that struck me more than anything, and the broadcast, Jesse Palmer was hitting on this on ESPN. Bama looks soft up front. Like, they were getting pushed around. I mean, when you think about, listen, you live in Florida. I lived in Florida for 4 months. Like, the funny thing about Florida, man, it will come a monsoon for 20 minutes and then 15 minutes later, beautiful sunshine. It's weird. But if you think about that time of ugly, disgusting football weather, boy, that should favor Alabama. Running the football, receivers making plays in the red zone. It was not that at all. Go and hammer on this, Tim, because, yeah, I do think it is fair to say, like, this run for Alabama for the time being is donezo.
Well, the funny thing is, like, watching this game, it was like rooting for the lesser of two evils. Like, I despise Florida State with a burning passion.
Right.
And I hate Bama because of what they've done under Saban, obviously. But here's the thing. I was going into this game, and I'm thinking to myself, if they lose, is Kalen DeBoer already on the hot seat after 1 year and one game at Alabama? And after that performance, absolutely.
Even with that buyout?
Even with that. Are you kidding me? It's Alabama. They have nothing else. They need this. This is their life. Hello, it's Florida. It's football in the South. Like, this is everything to them. They'll never get a professional team, nor do they really give a damn about a professional team. So even with that buyout, again, when you look at DeBoer's history, his resume, this man is not an SEC man. I mean, he was at Sioux Falls, Southern Illinois, Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, for the quarterback and OC. Indiana for 1 year, OC and quarterback. Fresno State as the head coach, and then he was at Washington. Again, I am not trying to say that, being outside the conference doesn't necessarily make you an SEC type of guy. But like you said, Bryson, they got manhandled up front. Show me one game where a Nick Saban Alabama team
Can't find it.
Got manhandled. Show me one game where Nick Saban's LSU team got manhandled. Never happened, because in this conference, you have to be so solid up front. You have to dictate what's going on at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And Bama is not that at all. And listen, what Tommy Castellanos did, kudos to him, to not only call his shot during the offseason, but then to back it up pretty much. He wasn't wrong when he was saying that this is not the Alabama of old.
Yep.
And again, another team in Florida State, I still don't trust after what happened last year. I am not a Mike Norvell guy by any stretch of the imagination, on top of the fact that obviously I'm a Gator fan. Duh. But, I was looking at this Alabama team, and again, I think this speaks to Alabama losing more than Florida State winning, which is why, Florida State went from unranked to, I think, 14th in the country? Yep. It's a hell of a lead. But again, if it were me, if Florida State should absolutely be in the top 25, but it'd be right around 19, 20, in my opinion.
And we'll get to Florida State and where the three of us have them ranked in our combined college football top 25. Got some comments from our guy Patrick Brown, big time Florida State fan. He said, "What's up, fellas? Happy Saturday and supporting the debut episode of the Saturday Morning Tailgate. Alabama getting speared by my FSU Seminoles was needed." And he asked, "Does anybody in the SEC really fear Alabama? Is their reign of terror over for now? Also, if Bama were to move on, who's a coach that would fit?" I don't know.
Anybody that has SEC experience.
Yeah.
Any SEC experience.
You know who I'd be nervous about is my guy, defensive coordinator at Tennessee, Tim Banks. Listen, I don't know what we're paying this guy, but listen, he's getting head coach money. That's what I do know, because there's no way on planet Earth that he is, he's not gotten a lot of offers from other teams. So Tennessee, pay him whatever you got to pay him, because he does a great job. Do not let him go to Alabama. And final comment on this game, Patrick, Gus Malzahn is the Alabama tie killer. That's a fact. Man called a very balanced attack. The third down completion to Squirrel White, former Vol, kick-started a dominant game. No question about it.
All
All right.
why I don't trust Florida State. Gus Malzahn.
No question. Listen, up and down, but listen, he's got Alabama's number. There's no question about that. Going back to the kick six game in 2013. All right, it is now time as we begin our first kind of special segment. It is now time for the Buckeyes Breakfast segment hosted by Arthur Hurst. Arthur, take it away, bud.
What's going on, you guys? So it's the Buckeyes Breakfast with me, Arthur Hurst. I love what the Buckeyes are doing right now. So going into week one versus the Texas Longhorns, everybody knew it was going to be an interesting game. This was going to be Texas's revenge game with Arch Manning as a starting quarterback against this Ohio State Buckeyes team that beat them last year to go to the championship. Beautiful game, by the way. I was there to watch it in person, and I just loved every second of it, especially that Jack Sawyer sack fumble on his former roommate Quinn Owers to take it to the house for this exclamation touchdown. But coming out of that game, the feeling is okay. Julian Sayin is young. He's showing promise. He's able to make very good throws. He's a very good pocket passer. The thing that's really going to take this Buckeyes team to the next level is him being able to scramble and use his legs, being able to extend drives and open things up for his receivers, like a Jeremiah Smith, who you could saw was very frustrated with the fact that he wasn't able to get the ball a whole lot. And it was the same thing last year when they were going against the Texas Longhorns. They made sure that they had three guys watching him every single time. The thing, though, about being able to get comfortable in a week two team against Grambling at home is that Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin are now able to really work on that connection. Jeremiah Smith is a smart wide receiver, right? He knows where he needs to be, whether it's in zone, whether it's in man. He knows how to play the angles. He knows how to play his routes. He has very good hands, very good feet, very good technique. All he needs to do is have Julian Sayin just throw him the ball and give him those opportunities. And then the fact that C.J. Donaldson and James People, the two running backs right now who are filling in for Quashawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, who dominated last year for the Buckeyes, are now replacing those guys. And we're going to see what this run game looks like from here on out. The Ohio State Buckeyes have had very good, dominant running backs the last 10 plus years. So we're going to be able to see what they do. This wide receiver core is special, again, led by Jeremiah Smith, but you have Carnell Tate, who is very solid out of Chicago. You have Brandon Ennis, who is also very solid as well. And then you go to this defense. We know what they did last year. They were number one and number two last year with the Texas Longhorn defense. They had JT Tuimoloau. They had Jack Sawyer, right? They had Caleb Downstill. They had Cody Simon last year. So when you bring in guys like Arvell Reese, who showed what he's able to do at that linebacker position last week against the Texas Longhorns, being able to really beat guys up on the wide receiver side and play very good coverage as well, is going to be interesting with Matt Patricia at the helm, right? Again, I said it earlier, 12 times they were able to pressure Arch Manning with 4 men. That's crazy, right? But for Matt Patricia, who's not a blitzing type of head defensive coach, why not work in some blitzes? Why not bring Caleb Downs all the way? Why not bring Arvell Reese down all the way, right? Because again, you're going to have to mix up this defense. And this defense is so loaded with guys on that defensive line and guys in that secondary who can get to the quarterback, who can make things difficult for wide receivers and man coverage, who can make things difficult in zone coverage. But you're going to have to put pressure at the quarterback position, especially when it comes down later to the season. Because if you make it to where you're just a zone coverage team, a man coverage team, yes, you have athletes and guys who can really play their positions, but I feel like at some point in time that's going to get picked apart. When you have to play a team like Michigan, who is very run heavy, and they've been dominant the last few years with their run game against the Buckeyes, and being able to just bully them up front, that's going to be my thing. Is like, listen, we're going to have to get to the quarterback. We're going to have to get to the running back. We're going to have to get to the line of scrimmage and really be able to blow those things up to make sure these really good offensive teams, run dominant teams, or also pass like Texas could have been last week, are not able to do what they want to do. Take them out of their game plan and make them have to adjust to you. I believe they do that, they're going to be able to go back to back. This defense is going to be dominant throughout the year, especially when they're able to come up in big moments. They made the Texas Longhorns go 1 of 5 and 4th down last week. They made a couple of goal line stands just like they did last year. If this defense can keep this thing going and really help lead this team, as Julian's saying, and this offense is able to work on their chemistry and work on where they want to put the ball, how they want to play offense, I believe the Buckeyes will be fine and they'll be able to go back to back. But it all depends on that offense being able to grow and Ryan Day not being conservative and not being scared as a coach. We saw last year once they lost to Michigan, he had to really look at himself in the mirror and say, listen, this is all or nothing here. I got Will Howard, I got Jeremiah Smith, I got JT Tulamulawell, I got Jack Sawyer, I got Caleb Downs. We got to go out here and we just got to do this thing. And that's exactly what they did, and they came out on top. If he has that same mindset this year, there's no doubt in my mind if they go back to back. That's Buckeyes Breakfast with Arthur Hurst, OHIO.
Always, great stuff as always, Arthur. Great to have you for this segment. We're going to be doing Buckeyes Breakfast after our opening segment each and every week. Again, the three of us will all have our own opportunity to talk about our own teams. We'll be back after just 1 minute here on the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast. But when we come back, we give you our top 25 teams in college football. Stay tuned. The Saturday Morning Tailgate debut episode coming after the break. Welcome back to the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast, live here on the Grid Network. Very excited to be back. Listen, this is a great week, too, in college football. We'll get to our picks later on. Michigan and Oklahoma, the biggest game of the week in college football in Norman, Oklahoma. Listen, one of the great things, and we'll probably talk about this throughout the season, one of the great things about the new 12-team playoff is that now there is a margin for error. Now you do get Ohio State, Texas last week. You get Michigan, Oklahoma tonight, so that'll be fun. No question about it. Guys, we made our top 25s. We compiled them. I had a little computer system kind of do the numbers and average it out to what it came out to. So let's look at 21 to 25. So we're going to go 25 all the way up to 1. So the first 5 teams will go and put that up on the screen. So 25, we had Georgia Tech. 24, Utah. 23, Texas Tech. 22, Texas A&M. And 21, boy, have the mighty have fallen, the Alabama Crimson Tide. So listen, I'll ask you your take on this first, Tim, because listen, we know Alabama plummets. Georgia Tech got a big-time win in Boulder, Colorado over Deion Sanders' squad. Utah, you kind of put in your top 25, which elevated them to really get in. Went on the road to UCLA and absolutely mopped the Bruins and former Vols quarterback Nico Iamaleava, which was I can't say I was devastated to see the outcome play out the way that it did. But Tim, your take on any of these 5 teams? Anyone you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, again, I know we covered Alabama in Utah. I mean, not enough can be stated about Utah. I understand that, it's a team out west. The Pac-12 is essentially dead, but I don't know. They have always been right there. They've always been on the cusp, right on the brink of the top 25. I mean, I know obviously a couple of years ago they played the Gators well, in the swamp as well as, at Utah. But there's something about what they did last week where I was kind of like, hey, you know what? This is a team that we should really be keeping our eyes on. And that's why I threw them into my top 25 where I did. And, of course, when looking at it all, taking the fact that, again, I've lost a lot of respect for Alabama and just dropped them the way I did. Yeah, I don't know how you can't look at Utah as a team where
they could win the Big 12.
They could easily win the Big 12. I mean, they are always competitive in it. And, again, they annihilated your former quarterback there at UCLA. So I am I'm a sneaky Utah guy.
Listen, normally, especially on a Saturday night, I wouldn't stay up like crazy late, especially for those 11 p.m. kickoffs. I had to see this one. I'm not gonna lie, I stayed up till probably mid fourth quarter just to see the absolute just domination by the Utes. And listen, Kyle Whittingham is one of the better coaches in college football. Utah was on the brink actually back at when it was still a 14 playoff back in 2019 of getting in. Justin Herbert, who had a great night last night, by the way, and Oregon was able to get the job done in again the former Pac-12 championship game. Arthur, your takes on any of this? Again, Georgia Tech, Utah, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Bama. I will say I wasn't terribly impressed with Texas A&M last week in their game. It felt like they took until late third quarter, early fourth quarter to really get it going offensively. Any major take on any of these 5 teams that we've got before we get into the next 10?
I'm with Tim all the way. Utah is easily one of those sneaky teams every year where you just go into the season, you forget about them, but all of a sudden they, for some reason, remind you that they need to be respected and they need to be looked at. I mean, you look at the fact that during this college football playoff era, they had back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances in 2022 and 2023. I mean, they're a really good team, man. I mean, Devon Dampier, who they have at their starting quarterback, he played like a wow, I can't even think of the word that I just had. But he played amazing against the Bruins. I believe this team is very good, and they showed it defensively as well. Really being able to make Nico Iamaleava be able to have to work. And he wasn't able to showcase those things that we saw at Tennessee last year, which is very interesting. And you could say, leaving was probably not his best option. But I really
You don't
like where the
say.
Utes, but I really like where the Utes are going right now, being able to dominate in that first game against the Bruins. And I believe, the Utes will be able to use this season to get back to, again, who they've always been the last few years, which is a sneaky team that you have to watch and that's going to play you very, very tough. But we'll see what it gets down to when they have to play them really good teams and how they'll be able to do against them.
Listen, they're capable of being impactful this season. I'm trying to pull up Utah's schedule real quick on my phone here because they've obviously taking care of business. So again, they're currently ranked number 25 in the poll, but Cal Poly, Wyoming, they do have a ranked game against Texas Tech in conference. They've got Arizona State. BYU is a team that you could potentially see making some noise this year in the Big 12 once again. Colorado, Cincinnati. So listen, their schedule by Big 12 standards is no slouch. But yeah, listen, Kyle Whittingham's a great coach. I could absolutely see them making a run. Let's go into the next 10 teams here. If we can go and pull this up. Here we go. So from 2011, again, we'll count backwards. We've got Iowa State, Ole Miss, SMU, Go Vols, my Tennessee Volunteers, Oklahoma, Michigan, Florida State. There's Tim's Florida Gators, Arizona State, and Illinois. I will start with you, Tim. Listen, if you want to talk about Florida, or you could say that for Gator City later on in about 10, 15 minutes or so. But your take on these, on the next 10 teams, a lot of SEC in there.
Yeah, well, the one I do, of course, I'm going to talk about my Gators, obviously. But the one thing I do want to say about them is, and of course, I'll talk more about this in Gator City, but they did their job. They played Long Island University, basically a no-name school, a school I have never heard of. I didn't even know they could compete against the Florida Gators, no matter how much money they spent on it. But they did their job. They won 55-0. So while I'm happy about that, of course, I also got to look at that and be like, I'm not overly impressed. Otherwise, looking at this, some of these schools here came off, again, cupcakes. Florida State, as we just discussed, beating Alabama, top 10 team coming from unranked all the way to 14th. Ole Miss, I think, losing Jackson Dart is going to be a big factor to their team this year. But with that being said, I still like Ole Miss. And hey, Iowa State, the Cyclones, can never count them out. Again, another sneaky team.
Listen, Rocco Becht is one of the more experienced quarterbacks in college football, but at Iowa State, so that's a guy you definitely got to keep your eye on. Listen, Iowa State's obviously the alma mater of Brock Purdy, so we've seen quarterbacks come out of that school and be successful. To you now, Arthur, any takes on any of these 10 teams? Obviously, you got Illinois at 11. Big game against Duke, by the way. That's on our picks. Big game against Duke for the Fighting Illini coming up. Obviously, Michigan and Oklahoma, 15-16. They play tonight in Norman. Any takes on any of these 10 teams?
I believe Illinois will get the dub against Duke. I know we have it,
Spoiler.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't do my job. But Illinois, I believe, is going to make things tough on Duke, but I believe they'll be able to get the job done. Florida State, I'm proud of what Tommy Castellanos again called his shot this offseason going into this first game. And again, that's another guy. It takes a lot of cojones to say that, but when it's against the coach Kalen DeBoer, Alabama Crimson Tide, I guess you can feel very confident in saying, "Hey, you guys don't have Nick Saban anymore, so watch this." You're going to have to prove that the rest of the season. This high is nice. I hope they enjoyed it. And they've got another cupcake walk this week, and they're going to have another one possibly against Kansas State. But when you go against Miami, hell, even Virginia, and things of that nature, you're going to have to bring your A game and really be able to come out and play. Michigan with Bryce Underwood, that young guy at the quarterback position. Listen, he can ball. All right. When he committed to Michigan, I was like, okay, they're going to have a baller at the QB position, right? They're going to have a guy who's going to be really able to sling it, who can run if he needs to. Again, when the Buckeyes play on the last game of the season, I'm gonna be very interested to see how we play against them. Tennessee being able to replace Nico the way that they did with our new quarterback, man. I know that had to feel good for him. I know that had to feel good for that team. And I know it has to feel good for every Volunteers fan to be able to shut up in the Eagles' face, especially after that 33-point uh, demolish that they went on last week against Utah, and say, hey, man, you could have still been here. You're right. You could have had a nice little upset win, but you ended up leaving it. But it's okay. You can stay over there. So Illinois, Michigan, and Tennessee are being the three teams out of here that I believe are really going to be able to get jobs done later in the season.
To the Michigan point, obviously they've beaten your Buckeyes 4 years in a row, Arthur. So that's especially last year, which was the most shocking of all. The fact that it's a Michigan offense a season ago that could barely complete a forward pass. I think in their last two games, which they beat Ohio State and Alabama of all teams, they had like 150 total yards passing. It was unbelievable. So now you got this kid Bryce Underwood coming in the mix. We're going to see him kind of in his first big test against Oklahoma, against a Brent Venables defense. It's going to be a really, really fun game tonight. But the kid's got a lot of upside, a lot of talent, and that especially the game this year, and obviously we'll get to that way down the road in 2.5 months, but the game this year is in Ann Arbor. It's not in Columbus, so that's gonna be an interesting spot for the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. Obviously, I got to talk about my Vols. I won't go too far into it because I want to save my takes, obviously, for the Vol View coming up in a few minutes. But listen, Joey Aguilar's the story. I mean, this is a guy who transferred initially from Appalachian State, then to UCLA, then to Tennessee. Ironically, the Vols and Bruins basically swapped quarterbacks, and you see a guy who threw for basically 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the thing that stood out the most to me for Tennessee, we know they can run the football, we know they're exceptionally talented at receiver, is the fact that the deep ball's back in the offense. Not that the deep ball was, not that Josh Heupel wasn't calling it the last couple of years, but Joe Milton, God bless him. But, Tim, you know this, obviously, he was briefly with New England. Cowboys fans know it. Michigan fans know it. Vols fans know it. I actually know a Vols fan who called him Overthrow Joe. That's pretty accurate. Like his arm strength is unlike anything you've ever seen. He's just not terribly accurate with it. And even Nico last year was prone to some bad overthrows. Joey Aguilar hit Braylon Staley on a long ball against Syracuse. Like the kid's deep ball talent's good. Intermediate routes you got to kind of work on, especially in this Tennessee offense. But running the football effectively, would like to see a little bit more from the defense. But the fact that the AP poll has Tennessee at 22, I think they're underrating them slightly. 17 feels like a good spot for my Vols. Now let's move into the top 10, the 10 best teams here in college football. So from 10 to 1, we've got Clemson, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Texas, Miami, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, LSU, and your Ohio State Buckeyes. Arthur Hurst, I'll start with you here. Again, we obviously heard you talk about the Buckeyes in Buckeyes Breakfast, but talk about them, talk about anybody else on the list. Texas, they're at 7, Clemson falling to 10. How about LSU at number 2? Lee Corso said last week they were his pick to win the Natty, and thus far, so good. Takes on your take on the top 10 thus far.
I already talked about Ohio State Buckeyes enough, so I'm gonna chill on them for a little bit. Penn State, man, that's going to be James Franklin is a very good coach. I believe everybody knows he's a very good coach. It's just a matter of being able to get the job done against those teams that he just cannot beat for some reason. And the Ohio State Buckeyes have been one of those teams for the last few years where it's just like, Dad, going, I just can't get past these guys, right? But I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to do with this team, especially after having a quarterback that couldn't really get the ball downfield last year. Miami losing Cam Ward, that's a huge drop. And also losing guys like Xavier Restrepo as well. It's interesting to see how they're going to be able to bounce back, if they're going to be able to be the Miami of last year. and not even to be the Miami of last year, but just at least be very, very good. But they showed it. You saw Michael Irvin on that sideline being hyped for his Hurricanes, but they showed that they can be very good. Texas Longhorns, obviously, losing by 7 to my Buckeyes. But Arch Manning, it's all about growth. It's all about development. And Steve Sarkisian and those coaching staff really being able to help him be comfortable and being able to grow in that starting quarterback position. Notre Dame, again, very good coach, very good team as well. So we'll see how they're able to bounce back. And again, Clemson, your lower is gone. South Carolina, I'm happy to see in the top 10 and them being able to showcase what they're able to do. So it's a few teams in this top 10 who I believe deserve a lot more recognition and some talk. Like I said, Penn State, Miami, we're going to see what they do. Texas, obviously, is going to have conversations with South Carolina.
I think there's no question about it. And, it's funny with, and then I'll let you go, Tim. It's funny when you get these ranked matchups involving top 10 teams, there are situations where I don't think less of the losing team, and Notre Dame is that team. Like they go to Miami, they competed, they had a big time fourth quarter. CJ Carr showed some real poise, being able to tie that game before Miami was able to go out and win it in the end. I don't think any less of Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman today. And if you look at their schedule coming up, like if I could pull this on my phone here, yeah. So they've got Texas A&M, next week, which is a huge game for Notre Dame. But after that, they do not play a team the rest of the season that's currently ranked. So this is take care of Texas A&M at home. You should be rolling to the college football playoff at 11-1. So I think Notre Dame's in good shape. Listen, I'll talk about my Vols. My Vols aren't in the top 10. What are we talking about? I saw the orange and I automatically think Tennessee. That's how my brain works, folks. But no, seriously though, it is an SEC team I want to discuss. South Carolina at 9. Listen, I am a Lenore Sellers believer. I am. I think the kid's talent is off the charts. Again, solid performance last week against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's a mid, ACC squad. Tim, you mentioned it earlier. The conference is not exactly what it used to be. But I think if the kid is able to reach his ceiling, South Carolina's got a lot of talent offensively. I think the Gamecocks, their schedule is brutal. That's the only thing. But I think you could potentially see them very well in the college football playoff. But any takes on any of the 10 teams, Tim?
Well, yeah, first, I do want to just say that, number one, I still had Penn State over LSU. Listen, LSU went into Death Valley, beat Clemson, no two ways about it, not trying to disrespect. But, like I said, I need to see more out of LSU, Garrett Nussmeier. And then, too, going to Notre Dame. Growing up in Boston, Notre Dame had more fans in Boston than Boston College did. So
yeah,
that was always like my second team, and I was heartbroken watching that game. Notre Dame, Miami. I really wish Notre Dame could have pulled it out. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's a good coach. And to be honest, I know when I sent you my top 25, I had Notre Dame exactly there, Texas exactly there. But the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of inclined to, have Notre Dame jump Texas,
wow.
as it currently stands. I think a lot of the reason why we do talk about Texas is because of Arch Manning, and we give them the credit for him and him alone. Not to say that the rest of Texas is bad, not to say that Steve Sarkisian is a bad coach, none of that at all. But I do really like Notre Dame's squad. And I'm going to be, giving them a couple shout outs, of course, throughout the year. Hopefully that they can take it on against A&M. And as for South Carolina, listen, you said that you're a big Lenore Sellers guy. And
yes,
I don't disagree. I think Lenore Sellers is a physically gifted athlete. My only thing is, though, with South Carolina is with Lenore Sellers and Shane Beamer, that's a program I am just not sold on right now.
Okay.
They played very well against Virginia Tech. I am not gonna, poo-poo that. I think it was a big game emotionally for the Beamer family, seeing as Shane Beamer's father is the most decorated coach at Virginia Tech and coached Michael Vick, and so. It was, hey, listen, I think South Carolina, can make a run at it, especially with how tough their schedule is. But I'm looking forward to what they're going to do this season and, to see, hey, is South Carolina going to represent the SEC in the SEC championship game. I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not saying they'll get that far, but
sure.
It's going to be, if you're such a big fan of Lenore Sellers, hey,
go all in.
You gotta.
Listen, you don't have to threaten me with a good time, Tim. Like, listen, I'm not exactly pulling for the Gamecocks. I still, as the three of us come back on screen here, I'm still scarred from 2022 and what they did to us, and Hendon Hooker blowing his ACL. It was a bad night as a Vols fan, so I've not moved past that. But yes, I think Sellers is an unbelievable talent at the quarterback position. I think it's gonna be fun to see him moving forward. Funny that none of us really had any takes on the top 5 teams, because it's kind of just, those are the 5 best teams in college football. I think I need to see a little bit more from Oregon, but we'll see how it plays out the rest of the year. All right, it's my segment now. The Vol View here on the Grid Network here. Here we go. So it is time for the Vol View, hosted by yours truly, Bryson Carver. So here's the thing. I am really conflicted this week about my Vols. I am. Because they're facing East Tennessee State University. Now I'm not conflicted about what the outcome of that game is going to be. Tennessee's going to run away with it. I'm conflicted in the sense, that's my school. I'm an ETSU Buck. Through and through. Proud Buck. And here's what I do know about ETSU. Last week, 392 rushing yards against Murray State. I know it's Murray State. I know it's ETSU. I know it's FCS school. Still almost 400 rushing yards. That's something. I think you're going to see a lot of Arian Carter today for Tennessee, leading tackler a season ago. Had a solid game last week against Syracuse. But again, going back to what I was saying earlier, the number one story for this squad, Joey Aguilar. If that deep ball is able to connect, Tennessee's offense gives you a whole different, dynamic, because the fact that you've got a two-headed monster at running back, Deshaun Bishop, you've got Star Thomas, you kind of got a little bit of a Sonic Knuckles type of feel, kind of like what we see with the Detroit Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Star Thomas is kind of a quick, twitchy, type of back, can catch the ball in the backfield, and you got Deshaun Bishop, who can run between the tackles, is more of a bruiser. They used him a little bit last year, even though that was Dylan Sampson's running game offensively. The wide receiving core is about as good as there is in the SEC, just in terms of depth. You've got Chris Brazzell, who's 6'5", kind of a jump ball guy. You got Mike Matthews, who can work in the slot. Braylon Staley is your deep ball guy. He connected with Joey Aguilar, or Joey Aguilar connected with him last week on a 72-yard bomb against Syracuse a week ago, which kind of blew the game open, and Tennessee was able to ride the momentum from there. Listen, I think this is the first time Josh Heupel has had real freedom in what he can do in terms of play calling with the offense since he had Hendon Hooker, who could throw the deep ball, who could throw the intermediate routes. Joey Aguilar can move a little bit. I will say I'd like to see him slide a little bit more. Some of the hits he took against the Syracuse Orange last week, not crazy about those. Just get down, buddy. Let's live to see another play. We don't need you getting hurt and having to go to our backup quarterback situation, which isn't ideal. But offensive line play, I was impressed. We know Tennessee's offense is one of the more creative in college football. And for I don't want to say all of the, but for some of the questions about Josh Heupel from some members of All Nation, from the sense that, Alec Golish, he was the OC, then he left, and the offense doesn't look the same. I think there's a direct tie-in, not with the OC, but with the decline a decline in terms of production from the quarterback position at Tennessee with Joe Milton, Nico Iamaleava. Now you got Joey Aguilar, who's an older player, not terribly experienced, hasn't played a ton of snaps, didn't play at all at UCLA, but he fits well in this offense. He's adjusted quickly. This game against ETSU, I'll be honest, and this may be bad for the show, this may be bad for the Vol View. I'm kind of rooting against Tennessee today. What I'm hoping happens is that ETSU pulls an Appy State in 07, shocks the world, and that Tennessee goes undefeated the rest of the way. A man can dream, okay? A man can dream. So I've got my Vols today, though, by a final score of 63-7. It's not going to be close. There's a reason Vegas isn't even setting a line for this game, because it will get ugly very quickly. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View here on the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast. Listen, I'm conflicted, guys. I know it's not great.
Hell?
I know I'm not supposed to come on the show. I know I'm not supposed to come on the show and speak against Tennessee, but it's my school, Arthur. What am I supposed to do?
Simple. Don't root for your school.
Come on.
I was so confused. I'm like, what? Wait, what just happened?
Listen, if you went to a college that isn't the school that you root for, you're pulling for them. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean ETSU is not going to get rolled today by Tennessee, but a man can dream, right?
I'll tell you, if Vermont and Florida played in March Madness, I'm still rooting for the Gators.
Oh my God!
Undergrad in Vermont. I did my undergrad in Vermont, and I did my grad and worked for the football team for the Gators. So guess who I'm pulling for?
Okay, that's different. That's different. You at least went to Florida. I didn't go to Tennessee. I'm born and raised in a Vol household, Tim. Like that's again, it is in my blood. This is the one game of the year that I have been given the okay by my folks.
By who? By who?
By my
Vol
folks,
Nation?
okay? Not Vol Nation.
Let's make a poll. Vol Nation. Whose team should Bryson root for?
Listen, I think they would understand, okay? But that said, it's still going to be an easy win for Tennessee. There's no question about it. But again, a man can dream. Before we go to our break, let's do our quick segments. For you gamblers out there, we've got the cover crew featuring the BTA Trio. So I'm going to start now with Tim's first pick. Tim, you wanted to go with this game right here. Tell me why.
Yes, so I really was impressed with what Syracuse did against Tennessee. Listen, of course, Tennessee won by several scores, but overall, Syracuse going against UConn. I mean, listen, UConn is what do they call the secondhand conferences there?
Independent.
Yeah, independent, but no, lower five, whatever. But
sure.
They're independent. Regardless, they're not as talented as Syracuse is. Syracuse had a great season last year, and they went up against a tough Tennessee squad, no two ways about it, in Atlanta. And they, for the most part, I thought Syracuse held their own. So the fact that they're only getting they're only behind 6.5 here, give me Syracuse all day long. I think Syracuse is going to win at least by 14.
Okay, -6.5. That feels like a comfortable bet. I think I tend to agree with you. Arthur went with one of the biggest lines of the week, and he is just going big game hunting here. FIU and Penn State. This is interesting. What do you got here, Arthur?
Yeah, there's not much that has to be said. Rest in peace to FIU in week 2 against the Penn State Nittany Lions. Man, if they don't go ahead and get the job done, the line shouldn't even be 42. It should be 60. It should be one of those old-fashioned OSU against nobody ass whoopings I love to see when we would drop like 70 points on somebody and they would score damn near 0. And if they did score, we would be mad because we wanted to shut out. So Penn State, just go ahead and whoop them in the first quarter. And yeah, man, just win by 60.
Okay, let's win by 6. I don't know if I've ever seen a -60 line. I'm not gonna lie. I'd probably take the points there if that was the case, even as talented as Penn State is. But fair enough. I've got a conference matchup, and listen, since Arthur spoiled one of his picks earlier, I might as well spoil mine. Ole Miss -8.5 at Kentucky. Again, conference matchup in the SEC. Listen, Ole Miss, Kentucky is one of the teams that screwed up Ole Miss's bid for the college football playoff last year. It was really Kentucky and Florida who messed up Ole Miss's season last year. That game was at was at Ole Miss. Kentucky came in. They were one of the worst teams in the SEC. It was one of those shocking wins of college football last year. Listen, I think Q Lacey, who's one of the top running backs in college football, is going to have a big day against this Kentucky offense. And listen, the fact of the matter is you have this kid, Austin Simmons, starting at quarterback, 3 touchdown passes, did have a couple of turnovers. We talked about earlier, and Tim, you mentioned it, like replacing Jackson Dart, first-round pick, is going to be, adjustment for Lane Kiffin in this offense, but still one of the more talented teams in college football, certainly in the SEC. Kentucky's not very good. I think Ole Miss is going to remember what happened last year. They're going to come in and take care of business against the Kentucky Wildcats. That is it. So let's go right back over it. The cover crew featuring the BTA Trio. If you want to win some money, Tim's pick, take Syracuse -6.5. Take Penn State -42.5. That's Arthur's pick. And then for me, I've got Ole Miss -8.5. Take those 3 and just thank us in advance. You can thank us next week on the Saturday morning tailgate. Before we go to break, I just want to say this. My mother actually just texted me. She just texted me an orange emoji. So I'm going to assume that means she does not approve of me taking the rooting for ETSU. Nonetheless, sticking to my guns, okay? That's my school for crying out loud. All right, we'll be back in just 1 minute. Actually, you know what? Let's go and get right into it right now. So it is now time for Gator City featuring Tim Barner. Tim, take the stage.
Let's go. All right, Gator City. What's going on, everybody? Listen, with what the Gators did last week, I can't say I was impressed. I think there was still plenty of room for the Gators to improve upon, but that's why you play Long Island University, okay? That's the school that, again, you can do whatever you want. You can try out whatever you want, and they did their job. They won 55-0. We've played a decent amount of bad schools over the last decade, and I'll tell you, I don't remember, us just annihilating a school the way we did in Long Island last week. So I'm excited because that lets, DJ kind of get his bearings back a little bit. He wasn't, the DJ that we all know and love, but with how things can progress, we're going to be playing a fairly decent USF team. Now, I think we should absolutely get the victory. No two ways about that. But it's kind of like we're starting here and we're slowly ramping up to win. We're going to have to go to Death Valley next week to play LSU, and, which is going to be a massive test for this team. So to play Long Island, get all the kinks out, start to work back, start to get DJ more comfortable being on the field. And he was only on the field for a half. I get it. But playing this USF team, again, I'm expecting to win. No two ways about it. But this is going to be a semi-test for the Gators, who are about to face a massive gauntlet. All right? USF has shown in the past that they're no pushover. Again, they lost to Bama 17-3 2 years ago in 2023, which, not for nothing, when you look at that score, it really should have been a 10-3 game over in Tampa, because Bama scored with 33 seconds remaining. So I call that more of a 10-3 loss for USF over in Tampa. But then last year, they got routed by Bama 42-16, but they took a 1-point game into the fourth quarter. They were down 1 at the start of the fourth quarter, 14-13. So, yes, they played Bama tough. And did they rout Boise State last week? Yes, they did. But here's the thing, though. They had a 25% missed tackle rate, 19 missed tackles on the game. And it's not like Boise State had Ashton Genty like they did last year. So Florida's strength is running the football. And if they're going to be as prone to missed tackles as they were last week, again, expect the Gators to run away with this. I mean, everyone wants to talk about Brian Burnham there, the quarterback at USF. He was great in that game 2 years ago against Alabama here in Tampa. That, you know what? It's going to be one of those games where, as long as the defense knows kind of how to monitor him, how to throw a QB spy, keep him in the pocket, make sure that he doesn't do anything crazy with his legs, I'm looking at the Gators running away with this and prepping for what's about to happen, because like I've mentioned multiple times on the show already, we're going to Death Valley at LSU next week. We're going to be going down to Miami to play the Hurricanes. We're going to have a bye on the 27th, a nice break, but then we're home against Texas, and then we're going to College Station to play Texas A&M. It's not going to be an easy stretch. And with DJ dealing with so many injuries this offseason, he's really got to find his game today, and really has to find the connection between him and VB3, Vernell Brown III, the true freshman, him and Eugene Wilson III. They really need to find that cohesiveness in order to go in to Death Valley next week and beat LSU, to go to Miami and beat Florida, reclaim the state of Florida, and then beat Arch Manning and continue the legacy that Steve Spurrier carried on by going undefeated against Arch Manning's uncle, Peyton Manning. So that's your Gator City right there. Chomp, baby. Let's go.
You just had to throw in the shot
Damn right I did.
At the end.
Damn right
Jeez.
I did.
One of the 4 greatest quarterbacks in history just had to. You know what? It's fair though. And by the way, something that you brought up on carving it up during the week when you guys came on is, I don't think DJ Lagway has lost a game in which he has started and finished. Correct?
Correct. He's 7-1, but that one was against Georgia and he got knocked out. So yeah.
Yep.
He is currently undefeated when he starts and finishes the game for the Gators.
Listen, very talented young man, and Gators certainly have a lot of upside, but again, the schedule is tough. We're going to come back. We're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, our Week 2 college football picks. The three of us, a 6-4 week in Week 1, so let's see who can create some separation as we go into Week 2. Come back in 1 minute here on the Saturday Morning Tailgate. Welcome back to the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast. Very excited for our final segment in which we will do it all. Great college football shows do. We make our picks for Week 2. So the three of us in different ways went 6-4. So we come into Week 2 just we came in one. It came into Week 1 dead even. So we'll see who can create some separation as we go into a pretty interesting weekend of games. So we're going to start with a big time game between the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Duke Blue Devils. I'll start with you, Tim. Who do you got in this game?
I got Illinois. I know everyone's talking about, Duke and their home. I get it. But at the end of the day, I don't know. You can't go against Illinois right now.
Fair enough. Listen, one of the top teams in college football, and given their schedule, maybe they could be kind of like last year's Indiana team and sneak into the playoff. Your pick for this game, Arthur? You're muted.
All right. My fault, boys. I believe it's going to be Illinois. Duke will put up a fighting chance, and it's going to be a very tough battle for them, I believe, at home, but Illinois all the way.
I'm going to take Duke in the points, but Illinois to win. I think this is a close game on the road for them. This is actually, it's a 2.5-point spread, so, could be kind of tight. Duke's got a solid team. Illinois' got good play at quarterback, so I've got the Fighting Illini winning this game. Next up, one of the bigger rivalries in college football, Iowa State, the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Your pick for this game, Tim?
I usually side with Iowa in this. I love Iowa. They're a classic Midwestern team that built from the inside out. But in this case, I'm going with the Cyclones. Give me Iowa State.
All right, Arthur, your pick for this game.
Give me Iowa State. I hate to go against the Big Ten, but I believe Iowa State is going to take care of business.
I've also got Iowa State in this game. Listen, Rocco Beck had a really good game a couple weeks ago in Ireland against Kansas State. Good experienced quarterback in the Big 12. I do think Iowa State comes away with the W. Coming up next, we've got who do we got? We got Baylor taking on SMU. Again, SMU's a ranked team. Baylor, a tough loss to Auburn last week. Your thoughts on this game, Tim?
Yes, so with this, you're right. Baylor had a tough loss to Auburn last week, and that's kind of giving me the edge to go with SMU. I'm taking SMU. I mean, Baylor, Auburn's not one of the stronger teams in the SEC, but Auburn still had their way. So give me SMU in this pick.
Fair enough. Your pick for this game, Arthur?
I'm taking SMU as well. Baylor hasn't been the same really since RG3 left, if we're being completely honest. I'm taking SMU.
They did almost make a playoff, to be fair, a few years ago. But yeah, it isn't quite the same program.
What did they do before that, and what did they do after that?
Fair enough. RG3 was an all-time great college player. We know this. I'm also going with SMU. Listen, it's a college football playoff team from a year ago. A lot of experience at quarterback. So I think the Mustangs get the job done. Up next, we've got Oklahoma State. Well, actually, before we get to that next game, I got a comment from our guy Patrick Brown, who just had to take a shot at my Steelers. He said Iowa Steelers, same team colors and the same style of football. It's just disastrous to watch them because I get PTSD thinking about the offensively inept Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, next game coming up, we got Oklahoma State taking on the Oregon Ducks, who we have as the 5th-ranked team in college football. Your pick for this game, Tim?
Got to take Oregon. They're just a consistent team. They a college football playoff team from last year. They're trying to run it back and actually make it past the second round this time. So, give me Oregon.
Never won a national championship, and so Dan Lanning's obviously trying to change that with the Ducks. Your pick for this game, Arthur?
I believe it'll be Oregon as well. I believe Oregon is going to be on a revenge tour. I believe things were very, very easy for them last year, and then they were able to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes at home. After that, it was just a smooth sailing season for them. And then they ran into the Ohio State Buckeyes in the championship, and we absolutely whooped their ass. We should have whooped their ass the first time, but hey, sometimes you got to lose some to win some. But I believe it's going to be Oregon to win this game.
Listen, I'm very hesitant with Oregon this season because they actually were my preseason pick last year to win the Natty, and I was feeling great. They're undefeated, Big Ten champions, #1, and then as Arthur said, the Buckeyes came and absolutely smoked them. It did make me feel a little bit better as a Vols fan, like, oh, Ohio State did this to other teams. It wasn't just a Tennessee problem. Yeah, I'm definitely going with Oregon as well. Listen, again, Dan Lanning's one of the best coaches in college football. They did lose a lot of starters, particularly on defense, to the NFL draft, but I like what they have at quarterback. One of the top, recruited kids at a high school. So I'm going to go with the Ducks in this game. Coming up next is the game that I had on the cover crew is the Ole Miss Rebels and the Kentucky Wildcats. Your pick for this game, Tim?
Kentucky is trash. I think Mark Stoops wants out of there. He is done in Kentucky. So give me Ole Miss. They're exacting revenge from last year, walking into Lexington. Give me Ole Miss.
Your pick for this game, Arthur?
I'm going to agree with Tim. I'm going to have to go with Ole Miss. I believe it's going to be a rough night in Lexington.
I agree. Listen, this was my this was my pick for the cover crew. I think Ole Miss is going to get the job done. Listen, I like what they have at quarterback. Good running game that they can bring to the table to Lexington. We know that travels in the SEC. So yeah, definitely give me the Rebels in this one. In-state matchup between Kansas and Missouri, Big 12 versus SEC. Tim, who you got in this one?
I sneaky have Missouri. I know it's going to be like a consensus pick probably, but here's the thing. Kansas and Missouri are going to be these two. It's going to be a back and forth game. I think Missouri is going to just sneak it out. They were a great team last year, trying to come off that high. And listen, I have all the respect in the world for Kansas. I know they just built a brand new stadium or made plenty of additions to their stadium, but I still think right now it's still Missouri.
Listen, Kansas messed up a lot of team seasons last year. You think about Colorado and BYU, so like that. Listen, watch out. They're a team that could potentially pull the upset here. Who you got, Arthur?
And I'm going to have to say that exact same reason. I'm going to have to go with Kansas just because, again, they were one of those teams. They were one of those teams that messed people up, and you were just like, wait a second, the Jayhawks, I only thought they were good at basketball. But I'm going to have to go with Kansas.
I'm going with Missouri in this game. Listen, the fact that this is at home, that this obviously helps them tremendously. Listen, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy about their head coach. I think there's a beef between him and Josh Heupel. Whatever. Listen, SEC all the way. Big 12 is rubbish. Let's go on to the next game. We've got Arizona State. Speaking of Big 12 versus SEC, Arizona State taking on Mississippi State. The Cowbells will be a factor. Trust me, they will be a factor in this game for a college football playoff team in Arizona State. Tim, who you got in this game?
You're not wrong. Probably the worst tradition in college football. Those
100% agree. 100% agree.
I will say, give me Arizona State. I think that Arizona State, coming off a big win last week, it's going to be a game where, yeah, it might be close, but Arizona State's going to pull away in the fourth quarter. No two ways about it.
No question about it. What do you got, Arthur?
Arizona State going to shoot the hell out of them damn Cowboys.
Listen,
Cowboys, whatever the hell. Hey, they're gone, bro. Sorry. There ain't going to be no music playing with them in that Daco Stadium.
No question about it. Listen, I also like Arizona State in this game. Listen, they've got one of the best coaches in college football. There's no question about it. And again, a lot of talent returning, particularly at the quarterback position. Definitely give me Arizona State in this matchup. Boston College. Come on, Tim. You got to be loyal to your state here. Boston College taking on Michigan State. Tim, who you got in this one? I'm actually kind of curious about it.
I am staying loyal. Give me Boston College. I think Bill O'Brien is one of the better head coaches in college football with being out of the game for so long. And now that he's back, I was extremely impressed with the quarterback play from Boston College last week. They're going to go into East Lansing, take down the friggin' Spartans, and they're going to go back home to Boston celebrating going 2-0.
We'll see what happens. How do you think this plays out, Arthur?
Michigan State is also one of those teams that's just lost this step in the last decade or so. I remember when they were just so good and so dominant. one of the better teams in the Big Ten, and then just slowly but surely they just fizzled out. I'm gonna have to go with Tim on this one, the Bill O'Brien. I'm gonna go with Boston College, which is
Agreed.
unfortunate because I don't like to go against the Big Ten, but I just don't think Michigan State has it in them to win this game.
It's wild. It's wild to think that just a decade ago, Michigan State was a college football playoff team. They beat Ohio State to get in. Now Alabama dog walked them and Derrick Henry, but still got in. Mike D'Antonio, really good coaching staff. 100% agree. That program's completely fallen off. Give me Boston College in this matchup for some of the reasons that Tim mentioned. Obviously, having his guy Bill O'Brien will certainly help, who's done a good job in college football, no doubt. Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech. Boy, I have a strong leaning in this game. Who do you got in this game, Tim?
This was a game I think I had the toughest time with because I love what Virginia Tech did last week against South Carolina, really making that a game for most of it, but also going off of what Diego did against Alabama last year was huge for the Vanderbilt program and something that they haven't seen in 30 plus years.
Yep.
So yeah, you know what? I was really going back and forth with this. Give me Vandy. Come on. Stay in the SEC.
All right, Vanderbilt is Tim's pick. Go stand loyal to the conference. What about you, Arthur?
I'm going to have to go with Vandy as well. I like what Diego did last year. They were able to finish off Alabama, and then you just see what they did the rest of the season. I believe the program is doing everything they can to come back up for air and come back to life. So I'm going to have to go with Vandy against Virginia Tech.
Listen, crank that inner Sandman with the Virginia Tech Hokies. Listen, I will say it on the show, I am a Diego Pavia hater, okay? This man came out on podcasts talking about, we're going to own the state of Tennessee. Man, you're Vanderbilt. Timmy, I'm sure even you could get down with this. The Vols are your hated rival, but Tennessee owns the state of Tennessee. Vanderbilt, get out of here. There's some issues with some off-field stuff with his family, like Virginia Tech all the way, especially after they lost to Vandy a year ago. Give me the Hokies 100%. I love Virginia Tech in this matchup. Next up, I have another strong leaning here. You got UCLA and UNLV. Tim, who you got in this one?
Give me UNLV. I mean, with Dan Mullen as their head coach, I worked with their director of player personnel directly when I was at Florida. They got off to a big win last week, so give me UNLV.
Dan Mullen's a great coach, no question about it. Arthur, your pick for this one?
Give me UNLV. I'm kind of on the I don't hate them, but it's just going to be very funny to see the season Nico is going to have, especially when it comes to facing Big Ten teams. Like, dog, I'm sorry, this is the Big Ten. I know you was at Tennessee and you did what you did last year, but even though, you show fight against the Buckeyes, you still got your ass kicked. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with UNLV.
I'm also going UNLV in this matchup. Listen, that's the thing. Nico still hasn't faced Big Ten competition yet. Utah is obviously Big 12 and UNLV Mountain West. But listen, UNLV had a great season last year. Gave Boise State a run for their money. But definitely give me UNLV in this matchup. And our final game, the biggest game of college football this week. You got a matchup between two ranked opponents. Go and put up what our rankings were coming into this week, because we actually have the number 15 team, our number 15 team, the Michigan Wolverines, going to Norman, Oklahoma to take on our 16th ranked Sooners. I'll ask you first, Tim, in this matchup, the marquee one in week 2, your prediction between the Wolverines and the Oklahoma Sooners.
Well, I think the Wolverines are going to be walking into Norman, Oklahoma, and I think they're going to get overwhelmed in the first quarter, but then they're going to find their stride and they're going to take over Norman, Oklahoma. Give me Michigan over the Sooners. I think that's just, it's going to be a tough matchup for Michigan, but I think they're going to pull it out in the end.
Okay, Tim's going with Michigan. What about you, Arthur? I know you're an Ohio State Buckeye fan, but I know you're objective. Who are you going in with in this matchup?
I believe it's going to be Michigan. I believe Bryce Underwood, and this being his real first game that he's going to have to play in an environment like that. We know the Sooners have a lot of pride when it comes to their school. I believe it's going to be Michigan. I believe it's going to start off a little bit rough for him, but it's part of growing pains. Growing pains is part of being great. So I believe it's going to start off rough for him. It's going to start off rough for the Wolverines, but I believe they're going to come out on top.
All right, so you and Tim kind of have a similar feel for how the game plays out. Listen, I'm a Bryce Underwood fan as well. I think the kid's really talented. I wasn't terribly impressed by what I saw from Michigan's defense, at least early on against New Mexico State. Listen, I think they've got a good coaching staff there. Michigan's one of the more talented teams in the Big Ten. I am a believer, though, and maybe not quite as an NFL prospect yet. I'm a believer in John Mateer, the quarterback at Oklahoma. I don't know if I necessarily, buy Brent Venables as a head coach long-term. Great defensive mind that'll overwhelm Michigan early. Difference is, I think Oklahoma's going to ride that momentum from there. Listen, who was the last Washington State quarterback to transfer before John Mateer? It was Cam Ward, and that worked out pretty well. I'm not saying Mateer's going to be the first pick in the draft, but I think Oklahoma Sooners will win this football game in Norman. That's it. That's all the time we have for the Saturday morning tailgate. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Shout out to Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst. I'm Bryson Carver. We will see you guys next week at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network for the Saturday morning tailgate. Have a great day. Of course, enjoy some great barbecue. Enjoy some tailgate. We'll see you next week, guys. Have a good one.
Enjoy alcohol.